This is one of my favorite props of the night. Karl Anthony Towns over 40.5 points plus rebounds. The Chicago Bulls are one of the worst defensive teams against centers. They allow 25.3 points per game to centers, which is second worst in the NBA. Middle of the road team when it comes to giving up rebounds to centers, but we know Cat's good enough to dominate any team that he goes against. His average against the Bulls in 2 games this season is insane. 45 points, 13 rebounds in 2 games combined. His point total is 27.5, so it could be a good time to play that alternate line considering he's gone 40 plus in each game. But I'm going to lead on the points and rebounds. I think that's much better value here. Cat's been good down low. He's also been good from 3-point range this season, and especially in these games against the Bulls, they just have not figured out a way to stop him. I think we're going to see a similar formula that the Knicks have used in past games against Chicago. They're going to get the ball down to Cat and let him cook, whether it's inside or outside. And he draws so much attention too. It's going to open up a lot of guys as well. So I think the Knicks have a big night, but specifically Cat goes over 40.5 points plus rebounds. Yep, got a plus money player prop here. Donovan Mitchell over 3.5 threes for plus 120. Averaged 20 points in 2 games against the Brooklyn Nets this season, but received a lot of open looks, just hasn't been able to knock them down. This is a game, though, that I think he can get going coming off that All-Star break. He was 3 of 10 on December 16th against Brooklyn from 3-point range, 4 of 6 on November 9th. Mitchell's a very streaky player when it comes to shooting the 3-ball. You can look at his stats and tell that pretty easily. Shot just 22% on 9 attempts in his last game, but Brooklyn's just what he needs to get hot because they do allow 3.56 threes per game made to shooting guards this season. That's 8th worst in the league. So they do a nice job in the mid-range. I think Donovan Mitchell's not going to have a great scoring night, but I do think he's going to get open looks from 3. If he knocks them down, he's a great chance to go over this line, and it's also plus money, so worth taking the chance on. Stephon Castle over 13.5 points. This could be my favorite play of the night. Stephon Castle's current Rookie of the Year favorite. He's done a really good job this season, and he could have a massive game against the Suns. The matchup is perfect. Averaged 12.9 points per game so far this season, but Phoenix really struggles against point guards, especially mobile, athletic point guards. He had 16 points last time against the Suns, shot only 35% from the field, so he did take a little increased workload there, just wasn't able to knock down as many shots, but still went over this line. The Suns allow 25.4 points per game to point guards. This is 5th worst in the NBA. They also allow 3.3 threes made per game, which is 5th worst in the NBA as well. Castle's hit this line in 5 of his past 6 games. The thing with him is he does elevate his play against top-tier competition. The Suns have not necessarily been the best team in basketball. They're fighting to play postseason basketball right now, but they have the big stars. This is the big spot for him to step up, and I just love the Spurs team overall. I mean, they got a lot of young talent, Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, a lot of guys that are going to be big impacts in the league someday. So I think they have a huge second half and make a push for the playoffs. And as high as the expectations were, they haven't necessarily delivered. But when you look at the 76ers, everything they want is still right there in front of them. As they get healthier, if they can get some consistent minutes from Joel Embiid, they're only 1.5 games out of the play-in. The team's good enough to make a run, potentially make the playoffs. And I'm not saying win a series, but there's talent there. So the season is not over for them, but I'm looking at a player prop in this one. Tyrese Maxey over 26.5 points against the Boston Celtics. He's 4th in the NBA right now, 27.6 points per game. He needs to deliver in this one. He's done a really nice job against Boston so far this season. 2 games against them, averaged 33.5 points, shot just under 48% from the field combined in those 2 games. I think he needs to have another big night here. I mean, they're going to force feed him the basketball because he's been really effective getting open against the Celtics. Also, something else that he's done well is drive to the basket. Boston's fouled him pretty consistently. He's been good in the mid-range with the pull-ups against Boston. One fear is the knee injury that he suffered right before the All-Star break, though apparently all reports are that he's good to go. And honestly, they cannot limit him in this one. They need a win here because that would put them on a very good path moving forward as they're chasing that play-in spot. Well, I think in the East, you have the Celtics and the Cavaliers, and they're clearly better than everyone else there. I'm not saying the Knicks can't win a 7-game series against potentially Cleveland. I'm not going to say they're going to beat the Boston Celtics because the Celtics haven't necessarily turned it up yet. And when they do, they're a very scary basketball team. They have all the talent in the world, and they have that big game experience, which is huge. I think the West is a lot more wide open than the odds are showing right now. When you look at OKC sitting around 2-1, I can't necessarily put them in the same position as the Boston Celtics right now. The Celtics are 2-1 or shorter at some places just because they're the Boston Celtics. They won last year. They have the talent. OKC got bumped early last year. They haven't necessarily shown anything in the playoffs, and they're an extremely young team. So I think Denver right now for 14-1, the West definitely has some value. They match up very well against Oklahoma City. The Lakers potentially for 17-1 or 18-1, just because they have that talent. They don't have a lot of size, which is my biggest fear. But the West is a lot more wide open than the odds are showing right now. So I would be looking at Denver, and I would be looking at potentially LA. I think they match up well with everybody except Denver.